Thank you, David. And thank you all for coming out on such a lovely evening. I'm sure you would like to be on your porch. I just did a walk around the block, and there's a whole lot of people out there enjoying the sunset and the warm air. I have been here before, but I wouldn't recognize David's shop, I've got to say. 15 years. It's grown and changed a lot. So I want to thank David and Mother Earth Foods for bringing me here, and thank you also to the church for hosting this. It's a privilege to be here. The last time I stood up in front of a church, I was actually giving the sermon in our church at home, and I was a lot more nervous doing that, so I think we're going to be okay tonight. So very briefly, I come from, well, you can probably hear the accent, right? I'm actually British originally, but I've been living in Canada since 1988. On Vancouver Island, most recently. Anybody here been to Vancouver Island? That was David saying yes. It's winter there already, so I'm really happy to be here because we've had our first winter storms, we had trees down. I live on an island, so when we have a big storm, the ferries close off, and so I was glad to be away. So very brief introduction of myself. I've been a medical herbalist for 27 years. I have a 4-year undergraduate degree and a 3 years Master of Science in Herbal Medicine. That was at the University of Wales. I've been a clinician, seeing patients in practice all of that time. The last 10 years specializing mostly in cancer care and holistic oncology. But I also teach a lot about herbs all over the country, but in particular in Vancouver there's a naturopathic medicine school, so I run the herbal medicine program there. And in my own home, I teach a lot of classes and I practice a lot of what I preach, most particularly in the kitchen. So this year I was very lucky to have a live-in chef. I don't know quite how that happened, but I'm very grateful. We have a lot of interns that live with us through the season on the farm to learn about holistic agriculture, and it's a lot of work to cook for them. So having the chef was great, and he and I started a whole series of classes called Food is Medicine. And so I'm going to pick up tonight just a little bit on some of those topics. Just before I dive in, though, I wanted to mention, David talked about the genetic modification awareness campaign and letting you know about the fact that there's a concern about genetic engineering. And I just wanted to let you know, my husband is a retired soil scientist. He worked for Agriculture Canada for 30 years as a plant disease specialist and a soil scientist. In the last 10 years of his career, he was a genetic engineer and actually traveled the world as the Canadian government spokesperson for genetic engineering. And when we first met, he had retired, but he was still pretty pro-GM. And over the years of our marriage, I guess I've worked on him enough that he went back to do the research, and he found a lot of new research that wasn't available when he was in the profession. And he now travels all over the country with a presentation about the dangers and risks of genetic engineering. And let me tell you, it's very scary. So I could give that talk and it would be all fear-mongering and emotions, and I'd talk about frankenfoods, and some people would be excited and some people would just be turned off because I wouldn't have the sort of seriousness that my husband brings to it. But because he's a PhD soil scientist and spent 10 years promoting this, to now go around the country saying, you know what, it's very dangerous. It's a very significant problem in our culture because it's so, as David pointed out, it's not labeled. So you don't have a choice. It's not an opportunity for you to make informed decisions there. You're just being fed stuff that you don't know what it's going to do to you, because actually nobody knows what it's going to do to you yet. So yes, we are part of a big experiment, and I personally choose not to participate. We grow most of our own food and harvest our own seeds, which of course the big corporations would rather we didn't. But that way we know that what we're eating is not genetically engineered, and I feel a little bit more comfortable with that. So I just wanted to let you know that it isn't just a bunch of radical old hippies, getting upset about something that's kind of silly. It's actually, scientists are also concerned. So, that said, let's talk about more cheerful topics. Let's talk about kitchen pharmacy or food as medicine. Or how many of you grow a few herbs in your garden? How many of you use herbs in your kitchen? All right, good. So hopefully most of what I say to you tonight is going to make you think about what you already have at home. You actually don't have to go to a herbalist to get care, although of course perhaps I shouldn't say that because, you know, I'm in the profession of healing, but nonetheless, herbal medicine is, in some ways, it's the most democratic system of medicine there is. It is really for the people, of the people, and by the people. You actually do herbal medicine every day. How many of you made a cup of tea today? Or made a pot of coffee? Okay, so you already made a herbal medicine today. Yeah. How many of you drank a glass of wine? Or a beer? How many of you ate pizza with tomatoes on it? Yeah, I knew they did because we shared it. So that's all medicine. You know, you can go into the store and purchase lycopene in capsules, or you can eat tomatoes. Ideally with a little bit of oil, because that compound likes to be absorbed with oil. So to maximize the nutritional value of your pizza, you want the cheese, or at least some olive oil or some olives or something like that. So we're already doing herbal medicine every single day. When you eat, when you drink, you're already making choices about ingesting health food, nutrient value food, as opposed to junk food. So it isn't really necessary always to go and buy products or consult with practitioners or take products, capsules and tinctures, although obviously in a health problem, if you do have an actual disease, then you may need more than just what your food can provide. But I think the point is that if we make good choices about our food and incorporate the medicines into our diet, we may not need to go and seek health care as often. So Hippocrates, 2,500 years ago, he said, "Let food be your medicine and medicine be your food." And that adage is just as valid and relevant today as it was way back. So we're going to talk about a number of different fairly common herbs and spices, things that I would expect that you would have in your kitchen or could easily access and perhaps even grow. Some of them are tropical, you're not going to grow them, but some of them are very common, easy garden plants. So we're going to talk about those things that I hope you'll go away feeling a little bit empowered, that you can actually go home and do this right away.